Welcome back to counterculture. We have not done a counterculture in a bit,
Not since the last time.
which would be the first time.
Since the last time.
This is the second time.
Okay.
Yes,
Yes.
we just finished up Easter,
Yes.
and
Well, we just started
yeah,
Easter.
that's exactly right.
Because
And other cultures haven't even had Easter.
season of
I
Easter
know.
is what, 6-8 weeks, something like
Isn't
that.
it funny what that the Easter, we all take decorations right down after Easter,
Yes,
and then it turns
yeah.
to spring and all this
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
Easter has kind of gotten the raw end of the deal.
Yes.
But we were talking about the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus. And I was led to this concept of Jesus, the tomb, the empty tomb, and all the things that went with that. And thinking, that's Jesus' story. But where's our story? And our story is found a couple chapters earlier, like 10 or so, earlier in John, with the whole idea of Lazarus, right? Lazarus was a sick man who his sister sent to Jesus for help. Jesus answers that call, but deliberately waits 2 extra days to make sure that Lazarus is dead and that he's been in the grave for 4 days. But at the very beginning of this, he literally tells his disciples, this is so God can get the glory.
Uh-huh.
So we're going to do this whole process. We're going to allow Lazarus to die. We're going to allow people to go through grief. We're going to allow all of this stuff to happen.
Mm-hmm.
That is a concept that we don't like to talk about. We don't like to think. I was reading in Joshua the last couple days, and in the book of Joshua, he reminds the people, hey, you want the blessings of God, but if you're not careful, God will send the curses.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I argue frequently with people about this whole idea of, can God use evil? Will God send evil? Will God do things? And I think it's pretty clear in the Old Testament that God allows things to happen.
Yes.
That he will use the evil intentions of man for what he's trying to accomplish.
You meant it for evil, but God meant it for good. Joseph said to his brothers.
That's exactly right. Right? And so we look at this story, and it's hard to wrap our head around the fact that free will gives us the ability to end up in a grave, like
Yes.
Lazarus did.
Yeah.
Right? God isn't going to necessarily stop you from ending up in a prison, a grave of your basic choosing.
Yeah.
You've chosen to be there. So start there with me and tell me from a pastoral standpoint, when you're dealing with people that really are refusing to believe that God would ever allow this to happen, what do you do with that? How do we deal with people who refuse that God would ever allow them to get in a bad spot?
Well, there's some context there. If it's in the moment and they're freaking out, it's probably not the time to get into theology with them.
True.
In the initial situation, it's to offer grace as best you can. No, we're going to pray about this. I don't know what God's doing, but let's pray about it. From a preaching perspective, if I was teaching this or preaching it, part of what you just said, we live in a fallen world. As a Wesleyan, I understand free will. You make a bad choice. Sometimes there are consequences to that bad choice. And sometimes we are the recipient of someone else's bad choice.
That's right.
Sometimes things just happen.
Mm-hmm.
The diagnosis comes. Mm-hmm. But I can't sit here and say, well, God, I don't understand why I have heart problems when I'm 500 pounds overweight.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Now, I don't mean that to offend anybody, but I got to say to myself, I'm not willing to work out. I'm not willing to eat properly. I'm not willing to take care of myself. As the old statement says, if I'd known I was going to live this long, I'd have taken better care of myself. Now I'm having to adjust.
Exactly.
I was talking to a guy last night at my church. He used to jump barrels, on ice skates. And I joked him. I said, "John, did you anticipate when you were doing that you would need knee replacement?" Nope, it never crossed my mind. He said, youth is wasted on the young. And so there's sometimes things just happen. Yeah. Sometimes, I love thinking, well, everything happens for a reason. Yes, and sometimes because I did something stupid.
Yep.
And then there are consequences for that. Mm-hmm. And we are free. It's a true statement. I see it on Facebook a lot. You're free to make whatever choice you want to make, but you are not free from the consequences of your choices. Sometimes things happen, and we can't do much about it. And sometimes, it was like when Israel wanted a king.
Yep.
Was it Samuel said, "No, you don't.
Yep, you do not.
You do not want a king. No. We want to be like the rest of the world. We want a king." God says, "All right, I'll give you a king." Hey. Well, we have buyer's remorse.
Now we
don't want that. No.
That's what you wanted.
That's what you wanted. Now you have to deal with it.
It's funny. My parents were big on that. We didn't go out to eat a lot, but when we went out to eat, I always wanted to have fried chicken. And every once in a while, somebody would say, "Well, why don't you try something different?" And my response was, because I know my mom will make me eat it and keep it. Like, there's no going back. So if I order something I don't like, I'm not going to get to order something else.
Yeah, so.
Right? Like, my mom would be like, "No, you ordered that."
Just learned something about Andrew.
Yeah, so I ate fried chicken a lot. Why? Because it's kind of hard to goof up fried chicken. It's a pretty simple thing. So in this story,
that's why I won't eat liver and onions, because just in case, there's a very good chance I'm not going to like it.
But my problem is the opposite. Mine is, what if I do like the way that you make it?
Yeah.
And then I start thinking, I like liver and onions.
Yes.
And then I go eat it the way somebody else makes it. I'm like, I don't like liver and onions. I just like Mark's version of liver and
there
onions.
You go. Just like my biscuits and gravy are the best. That's all there's to it. Anyway, carry on.
In this story, both Mary and Martha say the same thing to Jesus.
If you'd been here.
They say, if you had been here, right, this would not have happened to our brother. A very true statement, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yes.
There's nothing that says that Jesus would have kept it from happening.
Right.
Just because, but we have that mindset. We have that mindset that somehow, if something bad happens to me, that God has abandoned me. Like, if God had you cared, I wouldn't have. Like I was just telling you this morning, I wouldn't have lost an animal. I wouldn't have gotten a car accident. I wouldn't have lost my job. I wouldn't have lost my whatever. It's a hard concept to get through, people. Number one, God is not some insurance policy.
Yes.
That keeps bad things from happening to you. And if they do, he'll make it all better. Like, I go to church so that if something bad happens to me, that's my insurance policy. Then God has to make it all better.
Yeah.
Right? How do we get this concept again through to people that, while there's some truth in that, if you had been here, my brother wouldn't have died. There's some truth in that. That is a possibility. But what happens when God is right there and your brother still dies?
Exactly. And even Lazarus died again.
Yep.
I always wonder, was he mad because they prayed him back? Are you kidding me? I can eat whatever I want, not gain a pound, and you call me back. I'm joking there, but it goes back to bad theology, and we have a lot of bad theologians out there, a lot of bad amateur theologians, and they don't mean to be bad theologians. They just don't know any better.
Yeah,
and part of that is because they have gotten this concept from bad theologians who do not ponder these things or think about, I will often, I remember counseling a friend of mine he and his wife lost a baby, and I had to go away and I couldn't be there. And I said, I want to prepare you for some things. I said, primarily well-intentioned platitudes that are not helpful. God needed another angel. Okay, number one, that's just bad theology altogether. We don't become angels. I might have burst some bubbles there. We do not become angels. And God certainly does not need more of them.
Yeah.
It's a nice sentiment, but it's not theologically correct.
Nope, it is not correct.
And you say that to someone, and they mean it to be well-intentioned and comforting, but it's not.
No.
God needs him. I need him. He can have him later. Let me have. It does not help. They're in a better place now. Well, you hope so, but you don't know. I get, well, they're not suffering anymore. No, but I am.
Right.
And so I kind of helped walk him through that, and I think it helped him later. Here's this little sidebar. Just say you're sorry.
Yeah.
I am so sorry. And don't say, let me know if I can do anything. Call them in a few weeks. Do something, because they're not going to think to call you. Do something. And so what it is, Andy, is it's people have these concepts of what God is supposed to do. And there were, we read in Scripture of all the miracles that Jesus did and things. There was a lot of times he said no.
Yeah.
He goes into a town, and what's that? He could only do a few miracles because of their lack of faith. So sometimes it's our lack of faith.
Yeah.
Or we want God to do something. We blame God when something bad happens, but we don't give God praise when something good happens. And then we wonder why, well, God's a bad God. No, you might be a bad theologian. That's hard words. Counterculturites, Ians, whatever you are, followers of counterculture. But it's the truth.
And it's a hard truth.
God created man in his own image, and we've been returning the favor ever since, and we create him in our image. Here's what I think God should do. And God didn't come through for me. How do you know he didn't come through for you?
Well, again,
It could have been worse.
Or if it's predetermined.
Or predetermined. Yes, I've just been reading about, I'm reading a couple books right now, but it's comparing Calvinism and Wesleyanism. And one of the big differences is in predestination. And predestination is not about the who, it's about the what.
Yep.
But we have this idea that, and then also providence and all that. Well, God, why did God let, and here's the other one. Why me, God? And God's saying, why not you? What makes you so special that something bad can't happen to you? My son was the perfect human being, the perfect everything, and look what happened to him.
Well, look at what we were just talking about. People said, if you had been here, right?
Yeah.
Jesus. But at the very beginning, he says to his disciples, for your sake, I'm glad that we weren't there. Because this is for God to get glory. And we miss that our lives are to give God glory. And he will do that any way he wants to.
Yes. And so I just earlier this morning I did watch it on shedding, on the well-worn path time of shedding, and God in that time of shedding, I'm going to reiterate here, God is removing dependency on things other than God. Now you say, well, see, but Pastor Mark, they were relying on God. If Jesus would have been there, no, they were relying on a version of Jesus
that they wanted.
That was, well, I want Jesus. They didn't want Jesus. They wanted Jesus by the byproduct of Jesus' ministry.
I don't want, a lot of times we say...
Or they wanted Jesus' ministry. They didn't want Jesus.
There are times where we want the free will of Jesus, and then there are times where we don't want the free will of Jesus.
Right.
You step in and you fix this.
Right.
Don't allow anybody a choice.
Yes.
You tell my boss he has to keep me. Right? You tell this.
And maybe God's made, here's the thing with this. I saw, God speaks to me through movie lines, and heard this line in a movie one time. Sometimes we're forced to make a decision that we should have made on our own. And sometimes that's leaving a job. And I've been there.
Yep.
I should have left sooner, and I didn't. And finally, God said, "You're going to leave this job, and it's going to hurt like the dickens, because if it doesn't, you're going to come back to it."
Well, we need to shut it down. Been there, right? Where God
Yes,
has
yes.
asked me to leave someplace. I said no, so God shut it down.
Yes.
Right? And there's no opportunity to go back. And
Yes.
that is a hard, like, stop before you get there.
Yes. And we're holding on to Egypt when God says, "I've got the promised land."
So
Can we trust him that if he's if he's shedding something, taking something away, that we can, I didn't mean for it to go that direction, but that we can go into the better.
No, it's the right direction, right?
Yes.
Jesus was creating an opportunity here for Lazarus, Mary, Martha, and others to shed everything else except for Jesus.
Yes.
The only one that could do this is Jesus.
Yep.
So, all right, let's leave it right there, and we'll come back next week and do the part that I actually wanted to do.
Okay.
But we're in John. We're in John chapter 11. If you didn't catch that, join us again next week right here on Counterculture.
Grace and peace.